Hey humans. Whew. This is some weird times we're living in right now. Oh my gosh. So, why am I making this video? I want to give humanity a little bit of a message that's, I think, really needed right now. And a little bit of background information too about kind of what's going on, why we need this message, and why this is a message of hope. So we're living in a world right now which is run by really powerful people, and that features billions of people who really don't have that power or control, seemingly, to do anything about what's going on. And you might be, on the left or the right side of the US political spectrum. You could be, here or there in any other country on the planet. You might live in the United States, you might not. But all of this affects all of us, everybody. Literally, humans are living in one house called Earth, and everything we do now, no matter where you live, impacts everyone. And more than ever today, the governments, the corporations, the sort of powers that be, the institutions that tell us what's going on, that includes the mainstream media, are running the show, and they're mostly running it into the ground because the rules of how economics work and the rules of how corporate profit and decision making behind corporations, which are really kind of the most powerful types of organizations on the planet currently, because they wield so much economic power and they more or less tell governments what to do, they cannot stop themselves from running our train off a cliff. And the cliff is a lot of different things. I mean, essentially the cliff is when any purely profit motive butts up against a natural limit, whether that's a natural resource or human resources, such as, for instance, the profit motive to squeeze as much profit out of selling a product or service as possible. What they do is they'll reduce or make lower quality the good or service. They will cut corners in terms of sourcing of materials, and they will essentially pay no heed to any other natural limit that exists, because that does not compute with the profit motive. So that's basically capitalism in a nutshell. But it's sort of like there's more than capitalism taking place here as well. There's a kind of a corporatocracy, oligarchy system that's emerging, which crosses sort of all national lines, because corporations are now these multinational things, and any person who has billions of dollars also aren't restricted in where they invest that money. So essentially the world is the oyster of powerful corporations and governments that are corrupted by those corporations, and the militaries that essentially are the mechanistic arm of these governments corrupted by corporate money, essentially wreaking havoc for profit through presenting the idea that we constantly need defense, that we constantly need to dump more and more endless funds really into weapons of war because of a essentially manufactured threat of which you create by essentially arming on the back end secretly militias and other people to sort of fight against your temporary enemy. All of this happening more or less at the expense of 99% of all humans on the planet and all of the life support mechanisms, whether that's basic access to healthy food, education, the right to exist without pandemics and diseases confronting you constantly, or like the trigger finger threat of some other perceived foreign nation that's going to be attacking us. And I mean, I can mention sort of what I think is behind those mechanisms, but really what our condition is right now is that we have a majority of humans on the planet on one side and a very small, very myopic, very out of touch with reality power elite system. That's my cat, by the way. We have this power elite system, on the other hand, that really knows no limit to the destruction of the planet and the destruction of people in their aim to more or less maximize profit, as long as they can still have their ivory tower. And even if it means, let's say, genocide, even if it means destruction of our lands, of our waterways, of our air, of our soil, of our sort of the sovereignty of our genetic material, whether that's in us or our food, or just the ability to live in a place where you're not threatened by nuclear war potentially at any moment because of some kind of fifth grade emotional jockeying between leaders of different countries that are just trying to also just extract as much profit as possible, and who may even just be personally profiting off of the construction of weapons of war. If you look at the U.S. military industrial complex, for instance, there is, if you really ask yourself about how it functions, there is more or less no prerogative within their entire infrastructure for the world to be a peaceful place for humans. And that is the case with any for-profit mechanism of generating weapons of war in any country. So this applies to China and Russia and the United States and any other kind of major country that is dealing with weapons of war. It is a huge profitable business. And when you tell your citizens that they must be afraid in order to be safe, they must simply obey, that pulls all rights away from citizens to be able to have any say, any kind of democracy to exist. And it sort of permanently forces us to be in a cage of heightened war state at any moment, and lets them take more of our civil liberties away at our expense. So what I'm trying to say here is what we need is this system to change. This is sort of an alert to say that the answers will never come from on high, and that it's the prerogative of all humans to actually start organizing ourselves and to create some type of system that can bypass the mainstream medias and to bypass the traditional leadership roles in any major institution. Is that the only thing we can really trust now is people-driven institutions that are not connected to corporate dollars and are not connected to existing governments. So I think we need to create a people's movement for international peace and dialogue so that we can actually have a chance of living out this century peacefully and making it through this. God bless everyone.